What if the absolute most effective way to protect your future success was to expose your most embarrassing, intimate vulnerability to the entire internet today? This isn't a hypothetical thought experiment. It is the highly calculated Machiavellian defense strategy of a man who spent years in professional exile after a total systemic collapse. In today's episode of The Sidebar, we're looking at 2 anniversary blog posts by published author and polymath Jeremy Bernansky. The analysts uncover that true resilience is not a bounce back to a prior state of comfort. It is a mutation into a new, unshameable entity. By the end of today's episode, you'll be able to look deep into your own closet and decide if you are willing to expose today to ensure nothing could ever pull you back to shore tomorrow. Grab your coffee, tea, or wine. It's time for The Sidebar.
What if the absolute most effective way to protect your future success is to, just expose your most embarrassing, intimate vulnerability to the entire internet today?
Yeah, right out in the open, just putting it out there.
Exactly. I really want you, the listener, to think about that. We aren't talking about, some hypothetical scenario here or some abstract thought experiment.
No, not at all. We are talking about a highly calculated, deliberately Machiavellian defense strategy. And it was executed by a guy who spent 4 years in absolute professional exile.
Right. It's a preemptive strike designed to protect a very specific future. And it involves publishing full frontal nudity of himself.
I know. It's a fascinating maneuver.
Yeah.
Because, well, on the surface, it looks like complete self-sabotage.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like career suicide.
But when you start to break down the mechanics of, leverage and shame and power, it really reveals itself as a masterclass in long-term strategic defense.
A masterclass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he is essentially ensuring that when he finally achieves his goal, which is extreme wealth and geographic freedom, absolutely no one can drag him back to shore.
No one has anything on him.
Exactly. And that is the core of what we are unpacking in this deep dive today. We've got a really remarkable stack of sources we're looking at.
We really do. We have this pair of deeply personal anniversary blog posts. They're written by the same author, but they span a whole decade.
Right. So we get this real-time, time-stamped evolution of a human being over 10 years.
Yeah.
And alongside those posts, we have his professional reference guide.
Yeah, and I have to say, that document reads less like a standard resume and more like, a psychological and operational dossier.
Totally, because the author himself is, he's a study in contradictions.
Very much so. He's a multidisciplinary artist, right? A classical musician since childhood, a filmmaker.
But then simultaneously, he's a certified Google AI professional.
Right, who studies historical military strategy and, really complex philosophy on the side.
It's wild. But let's set the parameters for you listening right up front. Our mission today is not to do some psychological profile of this specific author.
No, we are not dissecting him just for the sake of a biography. That's not the goal here.
Right. We are using his profoundly chaotic 10-year detour as a structural blueprint.
The intention is really to extract the mechanisms of his journey. We are looking at a decade that features profound heartache, massive financial setbacks.
Total social isolation, too.
Yeah, and hundreds upon hundreds of job rejections.
So by deconstructing how he navigated that void, we can extract actionable insights and, metaphors to help you navigate the unexpected detours in your own life.
Exactly. We want to understand the actual architecture of resilience.
But to understand the detour, we first have to understand the road he was traveling before everything went dark. So we're winding the clock back to the year 2012.
Right. The author is exactly 30 years old at this point.
And if you read the opening of his 10-year anniversary post, he paints a picture of a life that isn't just stable. It's accelerating perfectly according to a master plan.
It really represents the archetypal ideal of the early 30s. He's living in La Jolla, California.
Which, for context, is this premium, highly affluent coastal enclave in Southern California. It is incredibly desirable.
Oh, absolutely. And he describes his setup, and it just sounds so frictionless.
Totally frictionless. He says he's walking distance to everything, right? The restaurants, the bars, the gym.
The grocery store, the beach. He has a dog he loves named Austin. He's in a steady relationship.
Yeah, and he's gigging as a drummer in an R&B band,
Yeah.
which taps into that lifelong classical music background. Plus, his commute to his day job isn't even bad.
Right, and to cap it all off, he buys himself a brand new Camaro for his 30th birthday.
The Camaro, I mean, that environmental frictionlessness is exactly what we really need to examine here.
We do, because when a human being enters a prolonged period of environmental ease, when income is steady, the relationship is solid, the geography is beautiful, a very specific psychological baseline is set.
Right. We fall into this cognitive trap, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
We confuse a favorable season with a permanent state of reality.
Yeah, we assume we've just solved the equation.
Yeah.
Like, I have figured out the formula for my life, and now it's just going to extrapolate outward forever.
Exactly. And that assumption breeds extreme psychological fragility, because when your environment demands absolutely no adaptation from you, your adaptive muscles, well, they just begin to atrophy.
You stop scanning the horizon for threats because your immediate surroundings are just so incredibly comfortable.
The danger of a prolonged, straight, smooth path is that it leaves you entirely unequipped to handle a sudden, violent curve.
It is so much like driving a high-end car on a freshly paved highway, and your GPS shows a solid blue line for the next 300 miles.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy. There's zero traffic. The weather is perfect.
Right. So what happens to your attention? You start driving with 2 fingers on the wheel. You lean the seat back.
You might even start looking at your phone. You're operating on total autopilot because the road is demanding literally nothing of you.
And while you are relaxed in that driver's seat, you completely lack the tension required to react to a sudden obstacle.
Yeah, if a deer jumps out or a tire blows, the time it takes to transition from a state of total relaxation to high alert survival, it's usually too long.
The comfort zone creates this really dangerous lag in reaction time.
It does.
So I want to turn this directly to you listening. Think about your own timeline. When was your age 30 Lajola moment?
Yeah, maybe you were 25 and you just landed your first big promotion.
Or maybe you were 40 and finally bought the house in the good school district, right? When was that specific chapter where you felt you had definitively arrived?
And how did that deep sense of comfort blind you to the disruptions that were, quietly forming just off screen?
Because recognizing our own capacity for complacency is really the prerequisite for understanding resilience.
Right. And during this peak of comfort, the author actually notes that he comes home one night, admittedly after a few drinks, and decides to start a blog.
Yeah. And the first post is a mere 76 words. It's an incredibly minor action.
But it's this tiny creative impulse planted in really highly fertile, comfortable soil.
But the soil doesn't say comfortable, does it? The highway doesn't just throw a curve. The road literally crumbles underneath the car.
It completely collapses. He transitions from this frictionless existence into a period he bluntly calls his 5 years of what the F.
Yeah, and what is striking here is not just that bad things happen, but the density and variety of the setbacks.
We really need to analyze the sequence of these events.
Right.
Because they represent a systematic dismantling of his reality.
It starts with the death of a friend, right?
Yes, which introduces immediate existential shock.
And then his long-term girlfriend leaves him.
Right, so that removes his primary emotional and intimate anchor. Following that, his day job stops working out.
Which rips away his structural and financial anchor. He tries to adapt by moving to the beach, but he explicitly says that this resulted in a massive failure.
Yeah, the coastal green collapses, and he's forced into a geographical retreat. He leaves the premium environment of La Jolla for the harsh, arid environment of Phoenix, Arizona.
Which is such a massive source of friction. You are moving from a temperate, highly social, walkable coastal community
to an environment defined by extreme heat, sprawl, and isolation. It's a physical manifestation of his internal descent.
And he tries to rebuild in Phoenix. He takes a couple of different jobs. He meets a new girl. He's really trying to establish a new baseline.
But the new relationship goes bust. The jobs go bust. And then we hit an event that fundamentally changes the nature of the detour.
Yeah. Someone maliciously poisons his dog, Austin.
This is a critical psychological inflection point.
Yeah.
Losing a job or having a relationship, those are circumstantial tragedies. They happen to everyone.
Right, they're just the result of an indifferent universe.
But the deliberate poisoning of a beloved pet is a malicious, targeted act. It forces a cognitive shift.
Because the world is no longer just indifferent, it has suddenly become actively hostile.
Exactly. It introduces a profound layer of violation and paranoia to the grief.
And while he is processing that targeted hostility, the financial floor gives way completely.
Yeah. He details taking a contract job in Mesa, Arizona, where he is subjected to deceptive business practices.
And he loses $30,000. He writes, $30,000 isn't a lot of money, but it was money that was supposed to be there. I take money very seriously.
We should really pause on that figure. $30,000 might not be massive corporate wealth,
Right.
but for an individual trying to rebuild their life in a new city, that is operational capital. It's a safety net.
Absolutely. The loss of that money, combined with the loss of his community, his partner, his geography, and his dog, it represents a total systemic collapse.
Which brings us to the professional void. He highlights a specific date, June 5, 2017.
He calls it the day life got unexplainably weird. From that date forward, he enters this staggering period of career paralysis.
We were talking about 4 consecutive years of unemployment.
4 years is an eternity in professional terms.
It really is.
So wait, let's look at the math he presents. He writes that he applied for hundreds of jobs over those 4 years. Hundreds.
And he received fewer than 5 interviews.
I just have to play devil's advocate here for a second. How does a person with a degree, with experience, send out hundreds of applications and get almost zero response?
It's hard to fathom.
But beyond the logistics, how does a human being absorb that? 4 years of constant rejection. I mean, most people I know had surrendered to the couch by month 8.
Yeah, they were just stopped sending the resumes.
Exactly. How does a person avoid completely internalizing that level of societal rejection?
Well, you were describing the psychological phenomenon of learned helplessness. It's a well-documented state where an organism experiences repeated, unavoidable negative outcomes. And eventually, they just simply stop trying to change the situation.
The natural, energy-conserving biological response to continuous rejection is apathy. You stay on the couch.
But he doesn't become apathetic.
No, he doesn't.
And that is what makes this case study so vital. We have to look at the reality of what chronic rejection actually looks like.
Yeah, because it is rarely a cinematic explosion. A massive, spectacular failure is an event. You can process an event. You can grieve it.
Right. But what destroys a person's drive is the mundane, quiet erosion of hope.
Yes, it is the Tuesday morning reality of waking up, spending 3 hours tailoring a resume, sending it out, and receiving automated silence.
And it is doing that on Wednesday and Thursday for 4 years. It is a slow-motion starving of your professional utility.
And we can actually track how he processes this starvation through his blog, because the blog continues, right?
It does. We have a decade-long ledger of his mental state.
And the tonal shift in the source material is really stark. During the Lajoie years, the writing is heavily outward-facing.
He is publishing optimistic think pieces. He writes about leveraging good memories for a prosperous future, about the flow of life.
Yeah, about letting a positive attitude drive success. It is the philosophy of a man whose environment is basically confirming his brilliance.
But as the void deepens, as the 4 years of unemployment stretch on, the camera angle changes.
He moves from the wide shot to the extreme macro close-up.
He turns the analysis entirely inward. He stops writing about conquering the world and starts dissecting the fundamental mechanisms of his own mind.
He writes extensively about the concepts of joy, fulfillment, and oneness.
He even tackles the concept of regret, noting that it is a feeling historically foreign to him, but he forces himself to sit with it and examine it.
And he writes this profound line: life itself prepares you for your life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Right. He is sitting in the dark, stripped of his career, his money, and his relationships, and he realizes that the friction of the void is the actual curriculum.
That is the pivotal reframe. When you are caught in a void, whether it is a dry job market, a prolonged illness, or a period of intense personal isolation,
Yeah.
it is incredibly easy to view the silence of the world as a definitive judgment of your worth. You internalize the lack of interviews as proof that you are fundamentally flawed.
So to you, the listener, facing a void right now, how are you interpreting the silence?
The challenge is to view the rejection not as a final verdict, but simply as environmental friction.
It is resistance.
Right. And resistance in a mechanical system forces the energy to change direction.
If the world is systematically blocking your current trajectory, how are you using that friction to alter your course?
Exactly.
That reframing is really powerful, but it brings up a very logistical question. If you refuse to surrender to apathy, but society is refusing to give you a job, how do you actually structure your Tuesday?
Right. How do you fill the hours between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. when the external world has benched you?
Exactly.
This is where we see the transition from passive victimhood to active aggressive preparation. The author essentially weaponizes his isolation.
Weaponizes his isolation. That is exactly what it looks like in the reference guide. He doesn't just endure the quiet.
No, he fills it with an extreme, almost obsessive level of self-directed output and discipline.
Let's look at the creative side first. That 76-word drunken blog post, he maintains that discipline for a decade.
He uses the blog to grow his writing stamina, and eventually he writes an entire published book.
Yeah, it's this mashup of fantasy, mystery, and detective noir. He notes that he had no graphic designer and no editor.
It was just him in isolation, wrestling a narrative into existence.
And creating a book in that environment is a profound psychological defense mechanism, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. When the external world denies you agency, when you cannot control your income, your geography, or the safety of your pet, you are at risk of total psychological collapse.
So writing a novel is the ultimate act of reclaiming agency.
Exactly. You dictate the rules of the universe. You control the characters, the pacing, and the outcome. It provides a structured domain where he has absolute sovereignty.
And he pushes beyond just the written word. He starts shooting short films.
He teaches himself video editing and animation. He buys a drone to expand his visual capabilities.
Yeah, he travels to shoot Footage Canada, Omaha, Yellowstone National Park. He is generating a massive volume of creative work without anyone asking him to do it.
But the discipline isn't limited to the creative or the intellectual side.
No. The physical transformation he undergoes is just as radical and perhaps even more revealing of his mental state.
Right. The reference guide shows he gets a clean bill of health and pushes himself into the absolute elite physical shape of his life.
He begins training for and completing Spartan races, specifically the Super 10K and the Beast 21K.
Yeah. And for anyone unfamiliar, a Spartan Beast is a grueling, muddy, torturous half marathon broken up by brutal physical obstacles.
You don't just jog a Spartan Beast. You have to harden your body to endure acute suffering.
And he is undertaking this extreme physical hardening while enforcing a strict social protocol.
Yeah, he notes in the blog that he stays single, sober, and celibate for 4 continuous years.
4 years without alcohol, without romantic entanglement, without dating.
He writes that his only real community during this time consists of the familiar faces he nods to at the local gym.
That is literal monk behavior.
It is the exact definition of asceticism.
It is. And if you look at history, from early desert monastics to Stoic philosophers, when an individual is faced with an overwhelming existential crisis or a chaotic environment,
The most effective response is often a radical simplification of inputs.
by removing alcohol, he removes a chemical depressant and a source of poor decision-making.
And by removing romantic relationships and practicing celibacy, he removes the potential for emotional volatility and distraction.
He is hermetically sealing his environment so he can focus all his energy on rebuilding his foundation.
He is building an absolute fortress. And while he is inside that fortress, the intellectual pivoting he executes is staggering.
Let's look at his background again. He has been involved in the performing arts since he was 5 years old.
Classical voice, piano, acting, jazz percussion. He holds a degree from a conservatory of recording arts.
His entire neurological framework is built around right brain, intuitive, emotional, artistic expression.
Yet during this period of extreme isolation, he forces a massive cognitive shift. He doesn't just lean into his art.
No, he aggressively pursues left brain algorithmic logic. He earns a Google AI professional certification.
He dives into AI, digital marketing, and revenue operations. And I just want to highlight how difficult that is.
It's incredibly difficult.
Transitioning from playing drums in an R&B band to understanding the mathematical modeling of artificial intelligence in your mid-30s, that is an immense friction point.
It requires you to completely rewire how you process information.
It really demonstrates a high degree of cognitive elasticity.
He recognizes that the world is shifting technologically, and his previous skill set, while valuable, may not provide the leverage he needs to survive the new landscape.
So he forces himself to acquire the language of the future.
And he balances that cutting-edge technology with ancient philosophy.
Yeah, the reference sheet lists his study materials. He is reading Marcus Aurelius for Stoicism, learning how to endure.
He is reading Carl Jung, Understanding the Shadow Self and the Unconscious.
He studies Machiavelli, Spinoza, and Locke. He reads military historians like Roger Crowley and John Lewis Gaddis.
He even studies the corporate leadership of Bob Iger and Walt Disney.
In his own notes, he calls this feeding the brain box. He is synthesizing diverse frameworks of human thought.
He's taking the emotional intelligence developed through decades of classical music and fusing it with the cold, predictive logic of AI.
And the ruthless pragmatism of Machiavelli. It makes you think of an analogy.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine that car we talked about earlier, the one whose engine died on the highway. The universe has essentially shifted his transmission into neutral.
Right.
He isn't moving forward on the map. The GPS is dead. But instead of sitting behind the wheel weeping or getting out and walking aimlessly into the desert, he pops the hood.
I love this.
And he spends 4 years in the blazing sun, replacing the spark plugs, tuning the suspension, upgrading the exhaust, and dropping in a supercharged engine.
Yes. And let's push that analogy further. He is doing all of this highly complex mechanical work while society, the job market, and his circumstances are actively telling him that the car belongs in a junkyard.
Wow, yeah.
The resilience isn't just in doing the work. It is doing the work in the face of continuous external invalidation.
He is upgrading the machinery to an elite specification so that the microsecond the universe puts the car back in drive, he can launch with terrifying speed.
This illustrates the profound difference between passive waiting and active waiting.
When most people hit a void, they wait passively. They sit, they conserve energy, and they hope the external environment changes.
They wait to be rescued.
Right. But active waiting is the recognition that while you cannot control the timeline of the external world, you have absolute jurisdiction over your internal readiness.
He quotes a line in his 8-year anniversary post that sums this up perfectly. When you can't find a friend, you can always find yourself.
It is a total mandate for self-reliance.
It really is.
So we have to ask you listening, when your circumstances force you into neutral, when the job market freezes, when you suffer an injury, when your personal life falls apart, what internal systems are you tearing down and rebuilding?
What is your version of the Spartan beast race? What is your equivalent of a Google AI certification?
How are you actively forcing your own mutation while you wait in the dark?
Because all of this intense hardening, the physical suffering of the Spartan races, the cognitive strain of learning AI, the isolation of asceticism, it wasn't just a coping mechanism to get through the week.
No, it was highly strategic preparation.
Yeah.
He was building armor to protect a very specific future goal.
And protecting that future required him to execute a maneuver that, to almost anyone else, looks like absolute career suicide.
Which brings us to the most complex, the most provocative, and frankly, the wildest part of this entire deep dive, the radical preemptive strike.
Right. To understand the logic of this strike, we first have to clearly define his objective.
In his posts, he articulates a newly forged, crystal clear vision for his future. The baseline goal is no longer a Camaro in La Jolla.
No, the new blueprint is to secure significant wealth, leave the United States entirely, and sail overseas.
He wants to be on a boat, exploring foreign coastlines, completely autonomous.
Wealth, total geographic freedom, and zero entanglements. That is the horizon he is aiming for.
And in his 10-year anniversary post, which also serves as a recap of a retrospective film he made for his 40th birthday, he reveals the nuclear strategy he deployed to protect that future boat.
He publishes a film on his blog, available to the entire internet, that includes a scene of himself featuring full-frontal male nudity.
Let that sink in. We must be highly analytical about the aesthetics of this scene, though, because the context is everything.
Yes, he explicitly states in the text that the scene was not shot to be alluring, artistic, or provocative.
He intentionally used harsh, bright lighting. He deliberately set the white balance to be awkward, specifically to match the uncomfortable, stark reality of aging.
It is not an erotic image. It is a raw, unvarnished exposure of physical vulnerability.
Okay, let's look at the why. Because he isn't doing this for shock value or avant-garde art points.
Not at all. He outlines a deeply calculated anti-blackmail defense strategy.
He states clearly that he is publishing this footage so that past flames, whom he actually speaks of with high regard, by the way, or any other future bad actors, cannot use private images to extort him or derail his life.
He knows he's aiming for wealth. He knows he's aiming for a boat.
By going full frontal and putting it on the public record himself, he ensures that his ultimate physical vulnerability can never be weaponized against him.
He is neutralizing a theoretical future threat by removing the ammunition entirely.
He literally writes, "To my former flames, those pictures and videos that you may still have of my penis, or of me naked, keep for as long as you choose. I've already shown the world my penis. It's out there.
It's so direct.
But I just have to challenge this logic for a minute. In a modern professional landscape, especially for someone holding Google AI certifications, isn't publishing a nude video of yourself essentially detonating your own professional reputation?
It really feels that way at first glance.
It feels like exposing your bank account passwords so a hacker can't threaten to steal them.
Your initial reaction is normal, but let's break down the actual mechanics of how blackmail and leverage operate.
Okay, let's do it.
How does a person or an institution exert power over you regarding your past? Blackmail, whether it is literal financial extortion or simply emotional manipulation and public shaming, relies entirely on the existence of secrecy.
The threat is always, I have this hidden information, and if I reveal it, society will judge you and you will lose your status.
Right. The power exists only in the shadows.
Only in the shadows.
The leverage is derived 100% from your desperation to keep the secret hidden. The moment you remove the secrecy, you instantaneously destroy the leverage.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's use a different analogy here. This isn't burning down your own house. This is what a white hat cybersecurity hacker does.
Explain that.
When a white hat hacker finds a zero-day vulnerability in a massive software system, what do? They don't hide it.
Right. They publish the flaw publicly.
Yes, they expose the ultimate vulnerability to the entire world, which forces the system to patch it, and completely strips malicious hackers of the ability to quietly exploit that flaw in the dark.
That is a flawless analogy, especially given his AI background. He is publishing his own zero-day vulnerability.
By leaning into radical transparency, he dictates the context of the exposure. He controls the narrative.
He is demonstrating the ruthless pragmatism he learned from reading Machiavelli. If you expose your own flank deliberately, you can never be ambushed there.
It is the ultimate declaration of psychological sovereignty. He is proving to the world and to himself that he cannot be shamed by his own reality because he has already claimed it.
And the awkward white balance suddenly makes perfect sense. He didn't want it to look good. He wanted it to be an undeniable artifact.
A time-stamped proof of immunity.
Exactly. And consider the psychological liberation that provides. As he executes his plan, as he accumulates wealth and prepares to launch his sailboat, he operates with zero anxiety about the past.
There are no skeletons in his closet because he took the skeletons out and hung them on the front porch.
He even reframes the dynamic with his past partners in a fascinating way. By publishing the video, he removes the temptation for them to ever attempt extortion.
He is practically taking the burden of their potential future bad behavior away from them.
It is playing relational chess 5 moves ahead.
So let's pivot this concept directly to you, the listener. We are obviously not suggesting that you go film an awkward, brightly lit nude video and post it to LinkedIn.
No, please don't do that.
But metaphorically, what is your naked truth?
Because every single person has a vulnerability they spend immense energy guarding.
What is the past mistake, the embarrassing professional failure, the financial ruin, or the personal flaw that you are desperately trying to hide from your colleagues or your industry?
What is the secret that, if exposed, you believe would ruin you?
And the deeper question is, how could proactively owning that truth disarm the anxiety that is secretly dictating your choices?
If you are terrified that investors will find out your last startup ended in a messy bankruptcy, what happens if you put that bankruptcy at the very top of your pitch deck as a masterclass in risk management and hard-won wisdom?
You take the bullet out of their chamber and you put it in your own pocket. You remove the leverage.
By completely severing the anchors of his past, the author clears the water for his ultimate horizon. He survives the void.
And as we examine the latter part of the timeline, we see the emergence. The 5 years of chaos begin to recede.
And the life that takes shape on the other side is fundamentally unrecognizable from the Lajala baseline.
The shift in his day-to-day reality is so striking. He adopts a new puppy, naming her Rey, after the Star Wars character.
And the way he writes about this dog reveals a profoundly reset baseline for gratitude.
He isn't writing about buying sports cars anymore. He finds deep, anchoring joy in the absolute mundane.
He writes about how Rey loves road trips, how she barks at the dogs on the TV screen, how she drinks from the toilet and plays fetch.
Now, that capacity to extract immense joy from the micro details of existence, that's a common hallmark of individuals who have survived profound stripping away.
It is. When you have lived through a prolonged period where everything is taken from you, you no longer require grandiosity to feel successful.
The quiet loyalty of a dog chasing a ball becomes a profound victory.
But don't mistake that simplicity for softness. His operational life is incredibly hardened.
He notes that his basic layout now involves dealing with attorneys, utilizing encrypted messaging, maintaining a relationship with a partner in Virginia who has this rich Caribbean, Italian, and Venezuelan heritage.
And focusing entirely on the imminent promise of the beach.
Attorneys and encrypted messaging is a radically different posture than walking to the club with your bandmates.
It implies a life built around securing assets, protecting privacy, and executing high-level logistics.
He has completely abandoned the superficial markers of success that defined his 30s.
He openly states he doesn't care about the club scene or the standard societal milestones anymore.
His vision for his 40s is entirely intentional and ruthlessly focused. Get paid, secure the perimeter, escape the country, and sail.
This brings us to the ultimate synthesis of what true resilience actually means.
In popular culture, we often use the analogy of a rubber band to describe resilience. You stretch the rubber band, it experiences stress, and when you let go, it snaps back to its exact original shape.
We tell people to bounce back after a tragedy.
But a human mind isn't a rubber band. You don't bounce back to the person you were before the 4 years of unemployment and the death of your friend.
Exactly. True resilience is not regression to a prior state of comfort. It is the process of mutation. It is becoming a new entity entirely, one that is perfectly adapted to survive and thrive in the post-trauma environment.
The author didn't try to recreate his Lajola life in the deserts of Phoenix.
He allowed the intense heat and friction of the void to forge him into a Google AI-certified Machiavelli-reading, Spartan racing strategist
Who embraces a reality he himself calls unexplainably weird.
He leaned all the way into the weird. He writes, "The most normal thing I have going for me at the moment, I would not have considered normal 4 years ago."
And to tie it all together for the listener, I want you to adopt the author's ultimate goal as a metaphor for your own life.
Visualize your current struggles, your voids, and your detours as time spent in a dry dock.
A dry dock is not a glamorous place. Your ship is out of the water, exposed, and vulnerable. You are taking damage.
You are facing rejection, you are feeling the intense isolation, and it feels like you are just rotting in the shipyard while everyone else is out sailing.
But the dry dock is not a punishment. It is a strictly necessary phase of the architecture.
You are in the dry dock so you can patch the holes in your hull that the straight, easy path blinded you to.
You are there to rip out the old engine and install a supercharger.
You are there to scrape off the barnacles of your past shame, your need for external validation, and your fear of exposure.
The detour is the required preparation for the exact waters you are trying to reach.
So let's look at the map we've drawn today. We started by dismantling the illusion of the straight path, the danger of assuming the early successes, the Camaro, the easy commute are permanent fixtures of reality.
We waded through the anatomy of the detour, examining how a cascade of malicious and circumstantial tragedies can plunge you into a void.
And how the quiet, daily friction of rejection is the true test of your psychology.
We saw how active waiting, weaponizing your isolation through extreme physical discipline, cognitive rewiring, and ascetic focus allows you to forge armor in the dark.
And finally, we unpacked the brilliance of the radical preemptive strike, exposing your own zero-day vulnerability to the world to ensure that no one can ever use shame to anchor you to the past.
He didn't merely survive the storm. He captured the lightning to power his own navigation systems.
It is a phenomenal blueprint for navigating the worst the universe can throw at you.
It really is. But before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative question to process on your own.
We've analyzed his strategic use of his naked truth to protect his future wealth and his sailboat.
Think about your own ultimate horizon.
If you knew with absolute, unshakable certainty that your version of extreme success, your sailboat, your freedom, your wealth, was guaranteed to happen.
What intimate, terrifying vulnerability would you willingly expose to the world today just to ensure that absolutely nothing could be used to pull you back to shore tomorrow?
What are you hiding that is giving the world leverage over your future?
Figure that out and you take your power back. Until next time, keep upgrading your machinery in the dark.